so many people around me. I am more saturated with connection and avenues toward connection, being surrounded and still feeling unseen. What does it look like in this time of loneliness happening, even in the context of this hyper-connected world? What does that look like, and how do we combat loneliness in this world that we live in, even though we have more ways to connect, presumably, than we ever have in our lifetime? Today, we're going to talk about loneliness in a hyper-connected world. Welcome to Celebrate Recovery Official, a podcast that shares life-change stories, courage, hope, and leadership wisdom, all centered around the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, where the Celebrate Recovery principles were birthed, that Jesus gives us a map to face the events in our life that brings up hurt in healthy ways, face that hurt to bring healing, to deal with the nasty core beliefs and hang-ups that we get stuck with, and how we see ourselves, God, others, and our circumstances toward new healthy truths, to ultimately combat those unhealthy practices, defenses we call habits, toward new healthy practices, and help mend the relationships with others and our fellowship with God. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. My name is Rodney. I'm the Global Field Director with Celebrate Recovery. It's good to be here with you guys. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying this spring season. I hope it feels like spring where you are. Sometimes here in Arkansas, where I live, it doesn't always feel like spring. In fact, you can almost always count on a snow during spring break. The ironic as that sounds, but hey, thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening, first and foremost. I know there's lots of other things, people a lot smarter than me, a lot more connected and bigger platforms, but thank you for choosing to use this platform to learn and grow in your recovery. And as we've said often, if people stop listening, we'll stop producing. There's plenty of other noise out there, and we don't want to be adding to that if it's not a benefit to the people out there. So if you like what you're hearing, give us a review, share it with somebody. It helps our algorithms. Give us a review. That means a lot. And if you got ideas, we'd love to hear from you. I've still got people on a list that I'm trying to coordinate, going down the list to schedule with an interview to get life change stories. So I haven't forgotten about you, but if you'd like to be a part of that, I'd love to talk to you about that. But so something that kind of prompted this idea, there was a video and a reel that popped up on my algorithm. It was kind of this older fellow said, "This is the best video you'll see today," and it was kind of an 80s theme. And if you were born after the 80s, this may not resonate with you as much, but I think stick with me because I think the topic will. But one of the things it says is it kind of does like a flashback to kids in the 80s, and which kind of a walk down memory lane. In that time, we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have social media. We basically, on the weekend, we would go outside, and it was a different time, but we wouldn't come back home till dark. We're riding bikes, we're climbing trees, we're playing in the dirt. There's things that we were building forts and doing things outside, and just a different time. But so it kind of takes you down this memory lane, and it's kind of these kids from the 80s saying, wait, you mean in the future we will be staring at a little box all day long, referring to a phone? You mean that you won't really own music, but you'll borrow it as long as you pay a fee, and if you stop paying the fee, you don't get to listen to the music anymore, and different things like that. But one of the things that really jumped out in this reel that I thought might be an interesting topic is, you mean we're going to have more access to ways to connect with people through social media and chat and texting and media outlets and such, and yet we're going to feel the most lonely that we've ever felt. And that just kind of hit me, how true that is. And in Celebrate Recovery, we used to, it's the Powerless lesson. One of the letters that we've since changed it, just kind of understanding mental health better, but we used to say that loneliness is a choice. And I know the heart behind that, but even the way that comes out when we say it, loneliness is an emotion. When someone feels lonely, you just feel lonely. Now, what we do with our loneliness is a choice, but so we change that up a little bit so that it's not worded that way, that it's a choice. But it does get me thinking about loneliness as a whole, and how do we have loneliness in the midst of a hyper-connected, kind of overly quote unquote connected world that we live in? And it just got me thinking, kind of pinging off of that reel I was talking about. We can be surrounded by lots of tools, lots of resources, and by the way, these tools are great. They're great resources, but we can be surrounded by so many things and so many people and still feel unseen, and that's a lonely place. Right, we can be in a crowded room and still feel like we're on an island by ourselves, and that's what I love about Celebrate Recovery is it loneliness is a feeling, but it's a choice what we do with it. And recovery, celebrating our recovery, is inviting us to be known by others, and that's one of the things with social media is we can. Even AI and filters, and there's so many things out there that we put off a facade or an image or a filter. There's even bizarre things like AI girlfriends. It's getting ridiculous, some of the things that are out there, because we're so uncomfortable with being known and knowing people authentically. And so in that, it creates a lot of loneliness. And so there is this reality, and I love the way Dallas Willard says it, that reality is just what is. Pain is what happens when we bump into reality. And so the reality when we're thinking about loneliness is we can be surrounded by things and people, but still feel alone. Think about all the ways that we can connect with people. In fact, it gets a little bit overwhelming sometimes, doesn't it? I messaged you on Facebook. I sent you a text. I sent you a Teams message. I sent you a voicemail. I sent you an email. There's all kinds. I could go on and on and on, but there's all kinds of different ways that through social media, text, phones, constant communication, yet loneliness seems to be rising at every single level, doesn't it? We can feel, even just the design of social media with the hearts in. It's the same thing that they use in casinos, the colors and the sounds and the visuals kind of gives us that dopamine hit. And I talked about that with the dopamine crash a few episodes back, but we're craving that, and when we it doesn't satisfy us the way relationships and connection was supposed to be, then loneliness only grows. And I've been there where you walk into a crowded room, even to your church on a Sunday morning or Saturday night church, or maybe you got Wednesday night Bible study or Wednesday night church or a small group, a Celebrate Recovery meeting, and we can still feel invisible. Have you ever been there? It's a reality, isn't it? We can be connected, surrounded, and yet still feel alone. But here's the truth. Connection is not the same as intimacy. we want people, and I love that version, thinking of intimacy, into me you see. When we allow people to see the authentic version of ourselves, to be known, we are only loved to the extent we are fully known. Connection is not the same as intimacy. So we can be surrounded and still unseen. But why does this matter? Isolation is one of the kind of the indicators of loneliness. When we're isolating, we will feel lonely, and that's where the struggles grow. It's like watering that weed. It's going to grow. When I have weeds in my yard, if I just kind of weedy over them and just kind of hide it, it's going to grow back probably even faster. But when we isolate and we're just kind of cutting it off at the top, we're connecting, but we don't have intimacy. Isolation is growing struggles. It's watering and growing struggle in our life, and loneliness. Just to be totally frank, because we've been talking about mental health awareness in our ministry and trying to break the stigma of mental health. Loneliness isn't just painful. It's like, oh, that kind of hurts. It's actually dangerous. When I'm not fully known and I don't allow people to know me fully, it can be dangerous. It can fuel. This is why the pandemic was such a lethal time, and it still gives me PTSD thinking about it. I was just talking to Johnny Baker, Mac Owen, about this. I still get kind of triggered just thinking about it. It's like it makes me feel a little bit nauseous. That isolation fueled addiction. It fueled anxiety, depression, shame, and unfortunately things like abuse within homes, right? I mean, just all that stuff. We're pent up together and all of our dysfunction came out. And that isolation, when we're not connected with the greater body, definitely not connecting with Christ, but also the body, it fuels those things that we're trying to walk in health with. So in isolation, that's when the lies get louder. I talked about that a couple episodes back. I think that talking about my mother in the hospital bed, it's those wee hours of the night that when in the quiet by ourselves that those lies and voices get louder, and we start to believe things like, when we talk about the hang-ups of Celebrate Recovery, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, no one understands me, no one wants to understand me, I don't belong here, right? And that's that isolation. That's why connection is so important, because it gets us around other believers, and not just connection, but intimacy. And being able to say, hey, I'm struggling, brother. I'm struggling, sister, where we can combat those lies. I'm believing lies like I don't belong, as we share in our open share step study small groups. Here's the thing about the enemy. He works in secrecy. But healing, we talk about this in Celebrate Recovery a lot. Healing happens when we bring it into the light. If you are struggling and you're watering that struggle and it's growing, is it because you're isolating and it's only fueling the loneliness? We don't recover alone. We recover together. And so we need each other. And that's why we celebrate our recovery in family, forever family. Here's God's design. You and I are wired. We are made for connection. We're wired for relationships, both with God and with others. The great commandment, love God, love others just as yourself. That we're wired to have a relationship with God and with others. Even from the very beginning, if you go back to the book of Genesis, God said it's not good for man to be alone. Doesn't mean that we're all going to be married, but we need each other. It's not good for us to be alone. We are stronger, as Ecclesiastes 4, it's a verse we read often. Two are better than one, right? We're stronger. We sustain life better together. We're supported. We need each other. I don't think community, especially biblical community, is optional. It's essential. It'd be like me saying, I don't know that you really need to drink water. Now, there used to be a day I didn't drink any water. And now because I drink water, my body craves it. We crave what we eat. Community, biblical community is not optional. We need community. It's actually essential, and it's just so important. So God's design is, we're made for connection. We're made to be with each other, to combat the loneliness, to know that we don't just have connection, but we have intimacy and healthy community. So that's what I love about Celebrate Recovery. I'm going to take a super quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation, just understanding how loneliness in a hyper-connected world can be lethal, and we need to invite others to make ourselves known. So stick with me. I'll be right back and continue the conversation. Hey friends, did you know that we have an annual conference called the Celebrate Recovery Summit? This year, it's the 35 Years of Freedom. We've got a great lineup. Tickets are going fast. If you'd like to be a part of that this summer in July, I think it's the 15th. You can check celebraterecovery.com for all the details. Join us for the annual Celebrate Recovery Summit. Go to celebraterecovery.com. Get your tickets today while you still can. We hope to see you at the Celebrate Recovery Summit. All right, well, welcome back. So as I went to the break, we're made for God. God made us for connection. He designed that. That's his whole wiring. But there's some barriers that we have to be aware of when we're thinking about, in this hyper-connected world, why loneliness can be a factor. Why do we hide instead of being known? What's the reason? There's got to be reasons. I mean, that's such a life-giving thing to connect with people. It's good to be aware of what are those some of the things we maybe believe in. Well, one of the things is fear of rejection. I know I struggled with, if you really knew how broken I am on the inside, you'll probably be another person that will leave me. Fear of rejection. Or what about shame? I must be a bad person. Something's really wrong with me. So why would I want anybody to see that? You see how the enemy, I've said this before, the enemy doesn't create anything. He just tries to hijack what God has created. God created and designed us for connection, so he's going to try to hijack it with fear and shame. So something must be wrong with me, so that can be a barrier that keeps us from making ourselves known to others. Self-protection, we talk about that in the habits, the protection, the defenses that we talk about. It can feel safer to keep things at a surface level. It used to be a time when I wouldn't let anybody into a deep conversation with me. It was really short. How about them Bears? Oh, the Hogs. Oh, that's good. And then bolt the conversation because it was easier. It felt safer, but it was a cost to that. And so you can say on one level, I was known about, but I wasn't truly known. And I'll just be honest, it makes sense. Vulnerability, especially depending on your story, if you're kind of in this avoidant or anxious posture as it relates to connection, healthy connections with others, one of our core fears that will cause us to be avoidant of being known is the fear of vulnerability. It feels risky, but it is truly the pathway to healing. When we are vulnerable and someone else is on the other side to receive that and accept that, it does something to our nervous system. It feels risky, but just know, if you're scared of being vulnerable, take a risk. Just show up and try to learn from other people. And then as God gives you the courage, share, throw some softballs out there about you. And do that with certain people, and if they hold that with kind of that sacred space with safety, then you can begin to give them more bigger things. But we don't want to just say everything to everyone, but we need to make ourselves known to at least a small circle, and that's the beauty of Celebrate Recovery in those small group contexts. But vulnerability is risky. It can feel risky, but man, it's so worth it. And it truly is that healing path for us. I think if you're struggling with loneliness, can I just kind of give you just not a manipulation, but motivation? Safe community will change a lot in your life. Jesus is the one doing the healing. He's doing the changing, but he uses people to do that. And recovery creates this incredible space where we can be seen and known without judgment. First time I shared in a small group, I was expecting people to kind of run out and find the ministry leader. We found the most screwed up guy on the planet. All they did is smile and say, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. You're loved. Give me a hug, kind of high five kind of thing. But that's the beauty of recovery. It creates a space where we can be known, take a risk to be seen, and do that without judgment. People don't try to fix me in community, in the Celebrate Recovery. It changes everything just to be able to say something, and I don't have 12 people coming up telling me what I need to do to change my life and fix it. And the cool thing is it's not an expectation for instantaneous growth. We're accepted in the process while we're in the process, while we are growing. And how cool is that? Hebrews 10 reminds us, that's the passage that says, don't give up on meeting with one another, and as some are in the habit of doing. That scripture is reminding us we're called to encourage, we're called to gather, we're called to stir one another up for good. And belonging in this healthy space as we get vulnerable and make ourselves known begins with honesty. And that honesty actually becomes the antidote to the hiding. And connection begins to replace isolation. And it's such an important, it really does make a big difference in our life. What we're trying to do is help people walk through the doors, and just know if you're struggling with loneliness, we're helping you. We're giving you the keys to this new powerful engine that is connection and community through intimacy, to move from your isolation to true healthy connection through intimacy. And it requires us to do our part too. I got to show up. Some nights I don't feel like going to a meeting, but I've never regretted going to that meeting that I didn't feel like going to. Show up consistently, even when you don't feel like it. Get your rear end there and your heart will follow. That's a real thing. Share honestly, but you don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to share it just perfect. Just share honestly. I'm struggling. I'm believing some lies this week. I just need to speak out loud. One of the sweetest prayers that we can say out loud to another person, especially to God, is help me. Ask for help. Break that lie in isolation and loneliness that says you got to be self-sufficient. If anybody finds out that you're needing help, they're going to think you're weak. Again, there's the enemy hijacking that. Break that lie of self-sufficiency. Ask for help. Lean into that community, whether it's a sponsor. Lean into the accountability team, the sponsor, the community that God has put around you. Take a risk with that. Those small, little, tiny risks will lead to incredibly deep connection over time. That's why I tell people when they ask, well, how long does it take to get through a step study small group? So, well, how long did you stay in your dysfunction? Oh, man, a couple decades? Okay. Well, here's the good news. The step study is only going to take up to a year. That's a blip on the radar. And so don't worry about the timetable. Just over time, take those small risks, and it will lead to connection, intimacy, healthy community and connection over time. Healing happens, and it sounds so cliche, one honest conversation at a time. We need each other. I've got to be honest. I can only be loved to the extent I'm fully known. And here's the cool fruit of that. We will move from loneliness to being known, to being loved, to feeling loved. If you were to put your hand in front of your face, just right up close to your face, it's like your perspective is on this one thing. And when we get connected with people, we begin to zoom out, and it's like pulling your hand back. You still see your hand in the distance, but there's so much more that you're introduced to. As we step into community, it's like God gives us a greater perspective on life. Shame begins to lose its grip. My identity begins to get restored. That's why I'm a believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with that. That's our identity. We're reminding ourselves. We begin to restore identity. I'm not my mistakes. I'm not my struggle. My identity gets restored. And cool thing that God begins to just be oxygen for our soul. Our joy, our strength, our courage begins to return, and we begin to have a different outlook on life. We begin to experience the incredible truth that we're really not alone. We feel alone right now because we're isolating. That's a real thing. And maybe you have good reasons, as I was talking about, those protections or fear of rejection or shame or whatever. But don't use that as justification to stay where you are. If that's where you are, be honest. But as we begin to experience these new healthy spaces of community, we realize I'm not alone. I really am seen. And I am loved. I'm not judged. I belong to a healthy community we call Forever Family. How cool is that? So the cool thing is the world says you have to live up to the fruit, right? If you perform at a high level, you'll get rewarded. The cool thing in Celebrate Recovery, you don't have to perform here. You just have to show up. You just have to take the mask off and make yourself known, and the fruit will be yours to enjoy. So let me ask you, we're talking about, there's so many different things. Maybe you're hiding behind a social media platform or text and email, and yet you still feel so alone in kind of a hyper-connected world, and yet you're not experiencing that intimacy. It's a good question to maybe ask yourself, where am I still hiding? Is there something in my life I'm still hiding, or am I just hiding in general? Can I encourage you just to consider, what would it be like if you took one step to join a Celebrate Recovery group? What's one thing at that group you've been going to that you've been holding back that you're afraid to share with somebody? What if you've found one person in a small group with the confines of the small group guidelines? What if you shared one honest thing with that person today or tonight, this week? Wonder what that could be like in your life. And then what if you just ask God right now where you sit, Lord, help me to have courage to step out of my isolation. I don't like where I am, and I need your courage to help me step out of this isolation. See, we can be surrounded and still unseen. But friends, we don't recover alone. And as long as you're trying to recover alone, you're going to stay in isolation. Remember, biblical community is not optional. It's essential. We need to be willing to take risk, even if it feels risky, like vulnerability I was talking about earlier, knowing that is the pathway to peace in this space, as we read in the Serenity Prayer every week. I want to replace my hiding with honesty. I want to replace my isolation with healthy, intimate connection with the body of Christ, and know that it's going to require me stepping out in courage, that I don't have to perform. I just got to be willing to take that mask off and invite God into that. And He will be the one that will give us the courage and strength to, in our loneliness, face what do we do with the loneliness? The world is going to say, hey, you're connected, you're good. You don't need to be in community, healthy, biblical community. But those are just tools. They're not the means toward satisfying the longing in our heart. So loneliness, we can be lonely in a hyper-focused, hyper-connected world. The only way we can combat that isolation, that loneliness, is through connection with God and with others. I pray that you have the courage to take that mask off today. Hope this helps. Hey, thanks so much for being with me today. I pray that you'll join me next time. Until then, God bless you guys.